Welcome to Monday Positivity. Today, we're going to talk about relationships. The other day, I was reading an article, and the author said something very beautiful. The author says that every relationship is a spiritual practice, and everyone is you pushed out. And that really had me thinking. And I do believe that relationships require work, tolerance, and patience, but conflict avoidance is also not possible in any relationship. And today we are specifically going to talk about couples' relationship goals and having improved relationships. And today's guest is a relationship coach. Her name is Dr. Billoups. Welcome, Dr. Billoups. So let's start with conflict avoidance first. What are the common causes of relationship conflicts and what can someone do about them?
Sure. Well, good morning, and thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. So, like you mentioned, in relationships, conflicts are almost avoidable simply because you have two different people, more than likely coming from two different backgrounds and their own thinking process. So conflicts will arise, right? And so I think the most difficulties is communication, not being able to communicate freely with your spouse or your partner, and then also maybe not feeling comfortable about communicating with them. That seems to be a big issue in terms of resolving conflict or getting to the bottom line. Is definitely having struggles with how we communicate with our partners.
Okay. And there are also many people out there who find it really hard to get into a relationship in the first place. So, what prevents a person from getting into a relationship?
I would say, based on my experience and the couples and individuals that I've counseled, what keeps a person from getting to a relationship is their previous relationships. So those experiences that they've had with previous partners, maybe they're having issues with trusting because that maybe there was some infidelity in their past relationships. The other issues are the things that they've learned behaviors, things that they witnessed or experienced with their parents, right? Maybe they were like, okay, mom and dad argued a lot, or there was always bickering. They didn't feel loved in the household. So that will definitely keep someone from wanting to be in a relationship because of their personal experience with their relationships, as well as what they witnessed growing up in their household.
And speaking of behaviors, do you think it is essential to have like a list of behaviors or red flags or green flags before getting into a relationship?
I think it's something that you should keep in mind in terms of, is this something that I could live with or deal with? My red flags or my deal breakers may not be the same as yours, or anybody else. But I definitely think if you want to be serious about a relationship, you want the relationship to go somewhere, it's a good idea to have things in your mind that you probably won't tolerate in your relationship, because the relationship is not going to work. There will be conflict that arise, and maybe at some point it won't be able to resolve. So keep things in mind that you just won't tolerate. And then, of course, have those conversations really soon in the relationship. If you're starting to date someone, feel free to have that conversation and tell them the things that, would be bothersome to you, or things you just not will be able to move on with in a relationship. Communicate that really early on.
Okay, that's a wonderful advice. And I was because I'm a highly sensitive person, and I was speaking with a highly sensitive coach, confidence coach, and she said that having a list of non-negotiables is very important,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
But I also feel like, people show their best behavior when the relationship is new, right?
Right.
So how
That
long
honeymoon phase.
exactly? So how long should someone wait to take it to the next level? And when do red flags start to show up?
Well, in terms of when should someone wait to take it to the next level, that's highly individualized. Um, I would say that 6 months to a year is acceptable, but that's just me. People believe that, hey, I knew from the moment I looked into your eyes, this is going to be the person that I'm going to love. So it's really based on what you feel and how comfortable you are with this person. But in terms of red flags and things like that popping up, I think they pop up pretty quickly. But because we're in that honeymoon phase, we tend to ignore those things, and we minimize it or we dismiss it. Like maybe if the person is, calling you 4 or 5 times a day, in your mind, you're like, oh, they love me. Not realizing that, number one, they have crossed the boundaries and it's getting a little bit controlling. But in the beginning, the red flags are always there. Like I said, we just tend to miss it or ignore it because we want so much to be with this person.
Right. And I've seen a lot of people do that actually. And speaking of red flags, are there like universal red flags or are they subjective? And also, does self-love impact someone's red flags?
So I think red flags are pretty universal. I think really across the board, no matter what the culture is, humans tend to do kind of the same thing. And so some of the red flags that I've seen are people like being self-absorbed, or maybe they say things like they cannot live without you. If you notice your partner is having financial problems early on, that's definitely a red flag because that's something they'll carry into the relationship. Again, difficulty communicating, commitment issues. Maybe we're going on 5 years of dating now and you still haven't asked pop the question or whatever have you. But as you mentioned, self-love is something important, and we all want to have going into any relationship. You need to make sure that you love yourself and carry yourself in high esteem, because if you don't, in your relationships, that's going to definitely come up and be an issue, and where you might find yourself in a situation where you're kind of being walked all over on and maybe not being respected.
Right. And this is actually out of the blue for many listeners or viewers. I don't think they would actually know what red flags actually mean. So can you define that term, red flags?
Sure. So red flags is that, I would say, like that gut feeling that something isn't right. But again, most of the time when you're in a new relationship, we minimize that. And we tend to think that it's something that this person just cares about me and it's not something to be concerned with. So it's definitely that gut feeling, something isn't right. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's making me feel a little uncomfortable and I'm not sure if I want to move forward with this. But like I said, we minimize it.
And what are some common red flags? Because you are a relationship coach, so I think you'll be the best person to speak on that. What are some common red flags, and how can somebody avoid them? What should they keep in mind?
So, like I mentioned, some of the common red flags are someone who's self-absorbed, who's all about them, and not really too much concerned about their partner. Again, they mentioned things that they cannot live without you. Trust is an issue. Finances is an issue. Maybe they have like a hidden gambling problem, or they're just not good with budgeting. They lack ambitions or goals in life, and maybe have a trouble making a commitment to the relationship. Um, Again, if it comes up, if these things are circling the relationship in terms of you're starting to feel like something isn't right, like I said, a conversation sooner than later should happen, because you don't want to make a commitment to this person and then realize that now you feel trapped and the relationship isn't going anywhere when these flags were always present.
Okay. That's an amazing advice. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who are listening or watching, and they'll be wondering, like, okay, like I remember like this is a red flag and that is a red flag. So what should one do when one sees red flags in a relationship, especially when the connection is very old? And how should they approach the situation now that they are aware of the red flags?
Well, definitely you want to have a conversation with your partner, and make it so that they understand that this is hurting you in a way that you may not be able to continue with the relationship, and be very specific about what this person is doing to cause the conflict in the relationship, or is causing you to feel uncomfortable, or causing you to not want to move forward in a relationship. It definitely comes down to communicating with them, and then also not necessarily giving an ultimatum, but maybe drawing a line in the sand, so to speak, to say, like, if this continues, this is how this is going to go. Whether you want to seek therapy, couples therapy, or maybe you feel like, hey, this is the end of the road for us. But that should all be communicated, and hold what you say true in terms of the minute it happens, address it. Because if you allow it to continue to happen, then they're not going to, believe that you're serious about your concerns.
Right. So communication is the first step. And
Communication is absolutely the first step.
yeah. And I'm also curious to know, why do people actually put up with red flags even when they feel the relationship is one-sided or something is wrong?
I think part of it is having low self-esteem, maybe feeling that if I let go of this person, I may not be able to find someone else. And so they want to hold on to for those reasons. Another reason is people really think that they could change someone else. Like if I just, talk to them or whatever have you, they'll change, they'll get better. But if people don't recognize that it's a problem or they have a problem, there's no change. So I would say self-esteem and feeling that they can make a change in a person, which we know that's not true.
Yeah. And touching on communication, what's the role of communication in a relationship? And what are some tips for better communication in a relationship?
I didn't hear the last part. What's the tips for?
Yeah, what are
Oh,
some
lack.
tips for, yeah, better communication in a relationship?
So when you are communicating with someone, I think you want to be very aware of first, like your body language, because certain things can make people feel uncomfortable. People say when your arms are crossed, maybe um, you're not accepting of information. It just depends, but definitely you want to make sure that your body language is appropriate. Let the person know beforehand that you want to have a conversation with them about X, Y, and Z. You don't want to blindside them because they could come off being kind of like defensive and resistive to the conversation. But let them know, like, hey, can we have a conversation at this time? Whatever have you. Make sure that, I would say, write down the things you want to communicate, because sometimes in a conversation, we tend to forget what it is we want to relay to the other person. And then before you know it, things got out of control and an argument ensues and everything is out the door. So like I said, let them know, be completely honest up front. This is what I want to talk to you about. Write it down. Be aware of your body language. Eye contact is very important. And also let the other person know, like, I'm telling you this because I love you. I'm not telling you this because I'm being malicious. I'm trying to hurt you. It's because I love you and I want this to work, if that's the case.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask you, like, because everybody is different, right? So personally for me, like, I have goals, I have a like whole vision for my future and everything. And the other person may not have that, may or may not have that. So is it a deal breaker if partners have different goals for the future? And what advice would you give these couples?
I don't think it's a deal breaker if partners have different goals in life, as long as that's communicated early on. And then this way you can both support each other in what it is that you want to do. I mean, like, for example, someone made a joke, like there was a couple that one was a Democrat and one was a Republican, and they seemed to make it, throughout their relationship, had been married for X amount of years. And it doesn't get any funnier than that with two different parties in the same household, but your goals don't necessarily have to align. I think what we need to understand is, number one, we need to respect each other, support each other. And as long as these end goals will uplift the both of us, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. And another concept that I came across
Mhm.
was love language. I came across this concept 3 years ago. So I wanted to specifically ask you, like, what is the meaning of love language and why is it important to know your and your partner's love language?
Well, yeah, so the love language, of course, I forgot all, but there's 5 of them and I can't remember them all right now. But there's a lot of like tests out there that you could sit down with your partner and do it online to find out each other's love language. And I think it's a good thing to know about your partner, because that's something that your partner really needs in order to feel that they are loved and honored and respected in the relationship. If I remember, my love language is the one where the partner does things for you. So like if my husband washed dishes, I'm like, you are the best thing for
Yeah,
me.
I think
You know,
that's
yeah.
acts of service. That's
Acts of
my
service.
Because
Yeah.
that's my love language as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Some, are different things and whatever works for you. But if that's what makes your partner happy and you're in this to make your partner happy, then why not? Why not pursue the things that they enjoy?
Right. And finally, I want you to tell our viewers about your services and how can they reach out to you. Anybody who's listening or watching this episode.
Oh, sure. So, the name of my agency is Cultivating Your Life. And you could go on the website, cultivatingyourlife.com. You could email me at Dr. Billoups at cultivatingyourlife.com. So that's dr.b as in boy, ILLOUP as in Paul, S as in Sam at cultivatingyourlife.com. Or you can call me 424-287-7410.
Amazing. And
Thank you.
I actually understand this is a very sensitive topic. So if anybody is facing challenges in their relationships, a challenge can be anything. It could be related to finances, it could be related to trust, what have you. Or even if you are finding it hard to find a partner in life, you can
Mhm.
contact Dr. Billups. I'll leave her link to her website, Instagram, her email ID, and also her contact number in the description box below this video. Thank you, Dr. Billups. I'm sure this
Thank
episode
you.
will directly speak to a lot of people and help them. Thank you so much for being our guest. Thank you a lot for thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.